This is the Immersion Mining Shed. I'm super proud of it. We put so much time into this thing. Let me show you what it was, what we did, and now let's run through what it is. The Immersion Mining Shed was the first piece added to the VoskCoin mining farm. And the real one, or the second iteration, or what was the first piece of my dream Bitcoin and crypto mining farm. So I needed internet. So I deployed Starlink out here. And with that, internet access, instant. It was pretty good. Not as good as hardwired Fios, Verizon internet, but pretty good and pretty easy. That's been up there for a couple years now. Still looks good, still functional, and it serves now as backup internet. Since then, we've trenched hardwired internet into this building. And speaking of this building, it's Amish built. It's an Amish built shed, gray vinyl siding, obviously an asphalt, tar, shingle roof, and 2x4 stick built construction. It's on skids. Can't really tell because I brought the gravel up, which I think looks really good. Helps keep animals out from under there, but I hope it doesn't cause moisture problems with no airflow under this thing long term. It was modeled after shipping containers. Shipping containers are hard to get when I deployed this, so I basically just built more or less a shipping container. I really only ever planned to use about half of it, or even a third, for mining. And I originally had air-cooled plans, but since then it's become the Immersion Mining Shed. So let's kind of run through what that is. This is the latest one. Don't look, I still need to caulk those holes right there. Maybe I'll do that after I'm done recording this. But this is FogHashing C6, DCX 2 miner, DCX 8 miner, FogHashing B6D. A lot of units out here. Each of these is basically a radiator, and it cools the miners. I've got some intake vents on the side over here, and then I also need to probably add another intake vent and definitely a couple more exhaust fans. Got the little baby fog hashing right there for the C2, and then built like a freaking tank, the BixBit units. They're 3 miner and they're 6 miner dry coolers. Super strut deployed on concrete. Those things will probably outlast the actual building. Let's head inside. Oh yeah. Little baby exhaust fan. It's good now that it's like 70, 80 degrees. But anything hotter than that, it does not keep up. Hotter it gets, the harder everything works in here, which basically leads to loss. So this is the BixBit unit. We'll just go around town here. The BixBit installs were very difficult, but it actually seems, and I still need to crunch all the data and make a comparison video, but they seem to actually be the coolest performing units. But it was also the most difficult install. I mean, look at the plumbing. Interesting. So we've got 4 Bitcoin miners in there and 2 Dogecoin miners. And then over here we've got a Kadena miner and then 2 more Bitcoin miners. Between these 9 miners, I'm pulling 72 plus 40 amps. And when you look closely, the cumulative electrical consumption is big. We cut these DOGE meters into these to monitor their electric performance. At a glance, it's incredible. And it really helps me keep a pulse on things, right? So I'm thinking I need to always see at least 50 amps on this one. Sure enough, it reads 50. So at a quick glance, this unit's good to go, hashing away. I really like these Altair mining PDUs. They're my favorite units. With our coupon code, we have an affiliate link, whatever, all this stuff too. But basically with our link and code, you pretty much get them for $100 shipped, and it's a great unit for that. They're nice form factor, 30 amps, all that stuff. And I can focus on these and get a reading, right? 19 amps, 18 amps, 17 amps, and 17 amps. So basically these are all good to go. 2 miners on each of those circuit, underclock, mine, and Bitcoin. That's sweet, but it's much harder to get that data at a glance. Whereas this, especially, you don't really think about it at first, but the different colors here make such a difference by pulling that data apart. So I've got a lot of questions on the Immersion Mining Shed, so I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff today. So grab some popcorn, and I hope this is fun and entertaining. We put so much time, thought, labor, effort, whatever, blood, sweat, tears into this thing that I hope that this is just a data mine for you. So next we've got the FogHashing C2 over here. This is such a cool little, just so user-friendly, easy to deploy unit for at-home miners. So right now we got 2 Kadena miners in there, 37C. They're hashing away, and then we've got the B6D over here. The B6D was originally my favorite unit, but it's not my favorite unit anymore. It has a lot of moisture wicking. So basically the immersion fluid goes up the cables and then leaks out. Look how much it's discolored the floor. Yeah, so I don't care, because this is just an immersion mining shed and it's just plywood, but you could care. So they've gone away from that design to the FogHashing C6. This is such an improvement across the board, especially when you utilize their PDU, right? So I run this big circuit into it, which is a 100 amp service. I run that into the PDU and then plug the miners in, and I'm pretty much good to go. I would love to see a couple more outlets on this, right? So I would be able to run the immersion tank off of it, the pump, the radiator, the dry cooler, right? All those things. So that would be an excellent improvement for this design, but as it stands, it's good enough. And then I can also, the data I get, right now I'm pulling 78 amps in this. You see my power, and then also cumulative energy there. And I can double check that right here. And it's interesting to compare here too, because going from this to that, a little bit of a higher draw per that meter. But anyway, I'm a data nerd, and all these power meters help me make sure I stay within the right electrical limits, which is right the 20% rule. I don't know if I introduced myself. Oh, hey, I'm Boss. If you didn't put that together. The 20% rule is you basically only use 20% of a circuit. So if it's 100 amps, you should really only be using 80% or 80 amps, 24/7, 365. So I'm right there, like on a basically perfect usage plane. I'm totally fine going above that, especially like plus 10%. But it's not good necessarily. It's not recommended. And above all, the number one thing I worry about is efficiency loss, right? The less efficient everything is, the worse it is for my bottom line. So yeah, and the other thing is you need to provide your own switch. On the B6D, their old unit, all that stuff was in here, right? That switch came with it. You see, we had to do the wiring. You see everything's kind of wet in here. It's gross. Run into the panel, handle all that, and yeah, big wire. Also, how cool is a translucent screen? (44C). So let's turn our focus to DCX. Density, best in the game right here. 8 previous generation miners can fit in this unit. That's a lot. 8 miners in here, 6 at most in all of the other ones. The good thing is that the C6 is kind of oversized, so it can fit the newer generation like the S21s. My S21 Bitcoin miners have been kind of crappy, to be honest, but hey, it's the way it goes. And then this is also the DCX2 miner unit, which they call their BitPod. This is a pretty cool design, and it's been a good unit, and you can actually deploy 4 miners if you do 4 watts miners, depending on the generation. I think it's definitely like the M50s and below. You could put 4 of them in here. So putting 4 in here and it having the cooling capacity for that is very impressive. Otherwise, it's 2 S19s, which it's basically overbuilt for. I really need to rig up a better solution than this. But one day we threw that together, and it was a really cool way to get the temperature readings on this, especially at a quick glance. So the red one is the 8 miner unit, and the 2 miner unit is off right now. We're waiting on a replacement fan for that dry cooler. So that the blue number doesn't really matter. We get temperature readouts on the LCDs, the little displays on the FogHashing units, all 3 of them. And then the BixBit units give us a temperature display here at the VFD. So we can see those are at 33 Celsius, 35 Celsius, and again we have 44 Celsius on the FogHashing C6, 37 Celsius on the FogHashing C2, 41 Celsius on the B6D, and there's only 5 miners deployed in there, and there's a lot of underclocking. I mean, it's only 50 amps. It's not a lot of energy to disperse. So the C6 has the biggest task here with 80 amps, and it's doing a good job of that. This is a random note, but I really want to bring it up. Please, like, don't drag your feet on things like lighting. I threw these light bars in here day one. They've made such a difference with all the work we're doing here all the time. On a switch, nice and easy. And what's actually pretty fun, I never dim them, but they can be dimmed. So if you are in here working late or whatever, and you want a little bit of lighting, but you don't want to get blasted, like I'm prone to migraines and stuff like that, so I try to be very careful and just cognizant when I'm thinking about my lighting and not blast myself. The later the day goes, the more likely I am to just trigger a migraine with lights. So when I'm here pulling a late night or something, working on whatever, because I also have my workbench over here where test miners, fixed miners, a bunch of replacement parts, all that. And this adjustable lighting is super cool. Also broke it up with basically this side, that side. I ran less lighting over here due to my original plans, that this was just gonna kind of be storage. It wasn't really supposed to be a working area, but that's what it became, and the lighting is still absolutely sufficient. Over here, more lighting, and that's really not as needed after the install is complete. But yeah, seriously, the bottom line is having appropriate lighting has been incredible. It's something that I've really enjoyed out here. I also get natural lighting from the transom window. I freaking love transom windows. You get so much lighting, and it's just, in my opinion, a very secure type design. One thing I would do differently is I would take this door and I would make it open inwards, and I also wouldn't have glass on it if I was to do this again. So I'm out here in the boonies, so if I was going to deal with some kind of break-in, I plan to exercise the right to defend myself and my property. Hell yeah. But yeah, I am very far off the beaten path out here.
A lot goes into maintaining a mining farm, but there are lots of platforms and exchanges out there that let you invest in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies without having to mine them. For instance, today's video sponsor, Margex. They're an exchange where you can invest in crypto using leverage without having to KYC. And right now they have a special where you get a $50 bonus if you sign up and make a deposit using our link. And if you deposit $100 or more, you get an additional $50. Use code VoskCoin to also get additional bonuses on your deposits. Make sure you research and understand the risks associated with leverage trading before participating. This is not financial advice.
So one other nice thing that came with I bought the upgraded model that has this unit, which can control multiple fans, by the way, which is pretty freaking cool. But this unit gives me a temperature readout, right? So this is 80 degrees Fahrenheit, Dennis, and a bunch of other data that, to be honest, doesn't really matter to me. I've just left this thing on speed 10 since I went ahead and installed that. I thought it was really fun to deploy this out here. This is just a like $20 decibel meter off of Amazon, and the refresh rate makes it not show up well on this camera, but we can see that right now it's about 60 decibels in here, 84 degrees Fahrenheit. It decides that it's happy about that, and 25% humidity. But it's really interesting to see the difference in decibels, right, based on not my voice, but actually the other equipment in here. The B6D is notorious for having an extremely loud pump when it's hot, which we're not being punished by that right now. All of these other units, honestly, are pretty quiet, and I would be happy to deploy them in all kinds of different environments and scenarios. But the B6D, not so much. Absolutely industrial settings only. It's very loud. Thinking about modularity with my exhaust fans, I decided to not hardwire them, especially because they come with a plug. So I have an outlet, and it's very easy to replace this when I need to, because all I'm going to have to do is pop out the fan module right there. All right, so I'm not even going to mess with that black bracket. I'm going to take all the other pieces off and just pull that out and put the replacement in. And those are the things that shouldn't be overlooked in the design process. Anything with a moving part will fail eventually. That fan will absolutely fail eventually. That's another reason why it can be detrimental to only have one fan installed, because if it fails, we don't have enough airflow, all this stuff's going to start cooking. Temperature protections, things like that, automatically built in from a hardware point of view and a software point of view. But I don't want any downtime in my mining operation. Well, sure, I've been building in the bear market, and a day of downtime honestly doesn't really matter. But I'm hopeful for a crazy bull run, and those will be days that I cannot have downtime. Those will be the days that all of the redundancy I've put in, I hope to be absolutely worthwhile. I have redundancy on everything, from all the Ethernet wires I ran everywhere, backup internet service, all kinds of stuff, right? Backup exhaust fans, and so forth. So when it comes to a repair bench, what do you need? What do you want? Critical things, some kind of electronic drill. I love that cheap Milwaukee, I call it my screwdriver. It is called the screwdriver. So we can see 2401-20, that's the Milwaukee number there. It's weak, it's brushed, you can see the sparks in there with the motor. It has that old tool smell because of the brush motor, which I find very nostalgic. And anyway, it's great. It's great. I already have the Milwaukee battery system, all that, so it's even better for me. But I use that thing constantly, because when you want to even just touch a miner, you got a bunch of screws you got to take off. Then you get the right bits. Phillip 2, Phillip 1 should be good to go on most things. A little bit of an extension. We have some Ryobi tools out here because we thought it'd be fun to get a beginner's tool set and then do a beginner's immersion install with the FogHashing units, which are supposed to be easy peasy to do and all that. And so, it's like $200 for the deal of all the stuff. And it's been useful. I don't have to lug tools back and forth. I've got stuff readily available. With my mining size operation, who cares about $200 of tools I don't have to lug back and forth from the house, and I can get immersion fluid on and not give a shit about, right? That's where my head's at. It's an investment in myself and the business. Let's talk about a random thing that was absolutely mission critical, and that's going to be this pump. So this hand pump, we had to pressurize, so there's dual loop systems. Let me explain that first. FogHashing units are easier to install because they're single loop. They pump the immersion fluid through the dry cooler. So very expensive, very messy if something fails in that system. Otherwise, a lot easier to deal with, right? Immersion fluid going in and out. Immersion fluid and this going in and out. Whereas DCX units, they're moving coolant mixed with water, right? Like a true radiator, in and out. A lot cheaper if there's some kind of failure there, or replacement or whatever. Same thing with the BixBit units. They're moving coolant in and out. They're dual loop systems. So the immersion fluid just sits in these tanks, and it runs against the side that's basically cooled with these systems. And the dual loop systems are much better suited for heat reuse programs. The dual loop systems are much better suited if you wanted to use an immersion miner to heat your pool. So those are things we're looking at and exploring. I really want to start doing a lot more heat reclamation. In the summer, you don't even think about it. In the winter, you're like, I am producing so much heat and I'm still paying to heat my house too. It's a total waste of money. And you can look at the going green factor and all that, but really it's just looking to increase my ROI, my return on investment. So yeah, but the pump, right? This pump came with the DCX 8 miner unit, and so we used it for that to pressurize the system. And I think just because I already had it from them, they did not send us another one, and they knew that, right, with the 2 miner unit, but we did not receive another pump with that unit. But what's crazy is with the BixBit unit, we didn't receive a pump, and it's confusing and weird, especially if you don't, expert level with this stuff. So thankfully, I was able to use this pump straight out of Poland to pressurize the BixBit system. And so it was just interesting that, all these little parts, one, keep everything that has use and value, obviously. But this pump ended up being a lifesaver, because if we didn't have a pump that day, like, we would have just had to stop. Like, we would not have been able to complete the install. Just, oh, well, that sucks. It's one of those situations where got to order something. It's not even something that I don't think we would have been able to find or source locally. And just sort of been game over. Well, see if I can get this in a couple days, and maybe we try to do this again in a week, because BMA, Dennis and Colby had come over to have fun, help out for us on that immersion mining deployment. And yeah, that would have sucked when you hit those walls. Like, well, can't do anything until we get that fixed and figured out. And also because of that, I keep a couple gallons of water out here, and I have a couple gallons of radiator fluid or coolant in another location. Some other things I keep spares of, obviously a lot of power supplies. We've got a transformer. We no longer use the transformer. In my opinion, it's not needed. Of course, Mr. Prepared. I have a backup transformer, so that sucks. Those are kind of expensive. I think like at least $200 each. But if you remember our DCX install, it was recommended we use a transformer. It was just causing loss, and there was a big heat brick over there. It doesn't have any kind of active cooling. We've moved away from it, and everything is still working, so good enough. Got backup control boards, backup fans. With our immersion mining, I mean, oh my gosh, we have so many fans. Just a couple Husky tubs worth of fans. Obviously Ethernet cables, power cables. I bought this wire an eternity ago. It's feeling like a long-term hold at this point. And of course, oh, it's copper, baby. The point, though, is that's for the digital shovel nanopod that we've been hoping to get for about a year. Still haven't gotten. Over here is extra wire and wire we pulled from other projects that just they did not suffice for numerous reasons. WD-40 contact cleaner, that's great for cleaning immersion fluid. I just got some rust treatment stuff. So this is like a kind of, I'm gonna use like a one-step. It is paintable, but I'm gonna paint some rust. It's gonna nullify it, and then it just leaves like a polymer coating. I've got some spots that are rusting, mainly on the digital shovel mini pod, and then I'm gonna look at the dry coolers and everything else, and if there's anything, just give it a little dab. Because I'm playing the long game here. I'm absolutely playing the long game. So I don't want my stuff to get holes in it and whatever else over time. A couple of the items that have been super useful on the test bench, right? So we've got our super cool VoskCoin meter boxes here. This is nice to get a real-time power readout. We also get that from the PDU. I just went ahead and bolted this onto the bench here. Keeps it nice and secure, doesn't roll over, and something I'll definitely get a lot of use out of over the years. And then look at this thing. I love this tool. So this is this little Milwaukee cutter. Oh, it has the part number. 48226105. This thing is freaking awesome. I use this to cut the little cables when you're taking miners apart. Not actually the cables, the little zip ties that hold them. Also, this very expensive for what it is Klein screwdriver has been phenomenal. Between these bits on it that have just been great size, great quality. The ergonomics of this is incredible, and then the way that the back spins, it just helps you speed up so much precision work. I love that thing. Obviously I keep tape measures, box cutters, zip ties, spare screws and stuff. Bunch of stuff here. Could definitely use with a little organizing, but whatever, good enough. I really like Husky garage storage stuff. It's good quality, looks cool, and it gets the job done. And honestly, in my opinion, in this era with how expensive everything is, I think it's really cheap for how much utility you're getting. You do have to put it together. To be frank, that sucks every time. But hey, if it was already put together, I probably wouldn't be happy with the price, and I'd say, hey, give me the one that's not built. Thanks. Other tools that I like are just, some basic pliers, cutters. I just bought like the holiday special Husky like $100 beginner tool set to have more stuff out here. Tools really accumulated over time, a lot of weird installs and stuff like that. But I don't think I have more than like $500 or probably definitely less than $500 of tools out here. I buy decent stuff normally, but I don't go over the top. This is stuff in a non-AC environment that can get immersion fluid on it and will be used not too often. And just I need to just get the job done, right? I mean, you can get all kinds of fancy pipe wrenches. I just got the Heavy Boy, Steel Boy, China Direct on Amazon for those, for example. I did try to buy nice exhaust fans. These are the AC Infinity ones. These have been cool and good. These didn't exist in my original mining shed design days, and so those are nice to have and easy to get and easy to get replacements. The outlet situation here is pretty weird. It was made on my original air-cooled design to, put them over here, run PDUs to them and things like that. So the mid-run wire was a huge mistake. I just didn't even think to specify it, and they didn't say anything, and they did this, the initial electricians that I hired. So this is a terrible spot to run this. You should just run it high, get it out of the way. I would definitely add a foot or two to this building so I can have more space. Just kind of get wire up and out of the way. You can see really how little room I have, right? Especially when you start running things like on the rafters. You run a couple wires across. That's it. That is all of the space. There's numerous areas that just ended up getting really tight. So I try not to drill any more holes in wood than I need to. I don't really like how we ended up doing this over here. I would not have the outlets up high and this many the way I did this. In retrospect, I would just design it to basically whatever I need it to be. And another weird thing is how much energy these new miners are using, and I think that us as an industry are just going to have to start going to 40 amp circuits. It's just, these miners are two like S21s and S21 Pros and these like AO1 Pros and stuff. That's going to be a good miner on time, but anyway. They're consuming so much power. We're talking 3,500 watts. We're talking 3,600 watts. We're talking 3,710 watts of electricity. You convert that to amps, that is a lot of amperage. They have fans on them as well. These fans consume power. They get hot, the fans ramp up, they consume more power. It's a lot. It's a lot of power usage, and it's just becoming not only unsafe on 30 amp circuits, but just not even feasible. The circuits are just going to start tripping, or you're going to have to start running one miner per circuit, which just seems, maybe that'll be the way it goes, but that just doesn't seem like a great use of electricity. You're going to want some weird like tandem miner setup. We have like a full-size current generation miner and then some other kind of alternative miner that uses only like 2,000 watts. So you could deploy at least two miners on that circuit and get more use of it, right? Furthermore, when you look at the circuitry and like you have a miner that takes up the majority usable 30 amp circuit, it's also kind of like, well, what's the point of PDUs and getting all these additional outlets? I'll just take like a direct run power cable, right? So here's an example. That's an L630P, an L630 plug. The receptacle is an L630R, L630 receptacle, and it's just a plug, and it's just a cable, right? We take this cable, and it runs over here right into the switch. Why do I have a whole circuit dedicated to that? Well, I had extra circuits, and I needed to plug it in, and so here we are. Oh man. I feel like my electrician really took the long route on this one. This was actually previously, and let me explain that's how we ended up here, right? That was another circuit, right? So it's like you see we have three up there, and then we have four over here. There were four up there like that. So I guess we just kept the extra wire in case we wanted to move it or didn't feel like messing with it at that point. And that's fine, no big deal. It's just kind of funny to see. It's like an electrician would walk here and just kind of be like, what the f did you do? Did some weird shit. Yeah, I did. So let's talk about my internet. Back there you can see I've got a little panel. I've got Ethernet in and out. 2 of those go to the hard drive mining shed, the green shed, basically leapfrogging around. 2 of those are inputs from the digital shovel mini pod, right? So internet comes here, goes there, and so forth. From that location, it runs into my Eero router, and from that I break it off into this switch, and then from that switch I break it off into this switch, and also this switch over here. Again, a couple too many switches in the kitchen. Some things could definitely be condensed or changed, but either way, we have those switches, and that runs over here. And then I ordered this big switch because I didn't realize that the BixBits had built-in switches. They have switches inside the case, much like the B6D, which was a really cool, well thought out, like very all-inclusive feature. But what ended up happening to me is I have this switch with the capability to run a bunch of miners, and I only need 2, right? I have 1 for the 3 miner BixBit cell and 1 for the 6 miner BixBit cell. And then I have the source. The source is coming over there from that switch, right? And then that comes all the way over to here. So a little bit weird. I guess I never came back and cut these zip ties. Just this is like what it's like when you work on a project here and there randomly and forget what you did last time, and then you come back and start working on something else.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
Really asking a lot of this wood in a lot of places, but things are still working. They're still holding up. One thing I've tried to do is focus a little bit more on storage, accumulate a lot of tools and stuff throughout this process, and so I just took this Husky garage hanger and put all our pipe wrenches on it. The caulk gun is on there as well. Pretty much same type design, just longer hooks over here. Got all the extra DCX hose up here. But like, so you may not realize, but one of the reasons immersion systems are so expensive is a lot of their components are pretty expensive. So this is up here, and it's just out of the way. It's incredible because it's fine. It doesn't really bother me, even though it's a little imposing up there on the wall. But it gets it off the ground. So I'd love to, even just build like a makeshift shelf or something over here and get some of these crates up off the wall or move them to another location. And then beyond that, I need to take some time, and I probably need to work out first, try to get this wire bundled up tighter, and then do the same thing and just get this wire up on the wall. So that's like 30-40 feet of aluminum, and then maybe 10-20 feet of copper. I mean, this is thick f***ing copper, man.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this. That's money. That is the source wire that we used for the BixBit 6 miner cell. That's what they called for, and it was a big spec. We ended up using something similar for the C6, but not quite as heavy duty. So that's 2-aught, and then we've also got 2-aught over here on the B6D. The layout of the Immersion Mining Shed isn't exactly what I expected. I just kind of ended up going like SpongeBob, bringing it around town. But yeah, I pretty much just took a tank, gave myself a little bit of room, took another tank, gave myself a little bit of room, more room here, right? Tank, room, tank, room, tank, room, tank, room. And it works. I got some wasted space here in the middle, but this was a design that evolved in real time. And at the end of the day, I built this with some aesthetics in mind as I kind of went through the process, but I also only have a 400 amp electricity service, and I'm pulling in another 100 amps from the service next to me, so I've got 500 amps deployed in here. and I'm completely, absolutely maxed out. So I can't add anything. I can get additional service in the future on 3-phase, and I could do more. So maybe I could look at squeezing a few more things in here and rearranging a little bit, or I could deploy a system that would let me get vertical. I could take some of these down and get that space back, right? I mean, like, I've got a huge footprint over here where the C2 is. I could take that out, put a 3-tier unit right here, and deploy 24 miners in this space. I just hope the floor can hold. This stuff is heavy, right? I mean, I've got very many gallons of fluid in all of these. I'll do some rough math and pop it up here on the screen, and then we can convert that to a rough number in weight, but it's a lot. If I had known I was gonna do this, I might have deployed on concrete. One of the reasons I keep these pallets under some of these, is because 1, it gets the units a little higher. 2, it's better for airflow, right? We got air going under these. So better cooling. Sometimes the moisture can get trapped under units like this and kind of rust them out from the bottom. And I really hope that it's helping to distribute the weight and add a little bit of like elasticity and like basically suspension to this. But who knows? Could just be a basic weight thing and it's backfiring. And all I did was add more weight with a pallet. The panel is right behind me over here. We came in through that wall. That takes up a little bit more space than I'd like. Again, if I had higher ceilings, that would be less of an issue. Built this with the garage door for a couple reasons. I wanted to store the gator in here when we were still building the other things. I wanted to be able to just pull the gator right in, we'll say like miner deliveries and stuff like that. But the irony is that the gator is like literally like this much too tall to come in here. So if I would have just gone up 1 foot, it would have been more than enough to bring it in here. It's just a bit of an efficiency thing. And I really just thought having the utility of a garage door would be cool. So like when we're having install days, we normally just open it up. It gets a lot of airflow and light in here. It's nice. It gave me a lot of utility if I didn't go this direction or do these things, or let's say in 20 years I'm done with this and I tear all this stuff down. Well, I've got a garage door on it now, which again is a lot of utility. The amount of work, say, to tear out and reinforce a wall like this one, unlikely to just really ever do that. So I figured why not do it and have it. If we use it, how much, I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, I don't regret it. It hasn't been as useful as I hoped, but it has made certain things much easier for a situation where I would need at least a double door or some kind of other like shed barn door type style, because you know, where do you think all these tanks came in? Right, this girthy boy right here, through the garage door. That immersion 55-gallon tub, the garage door. This behemoth from FogHashing, the garage door. The chunky square boy, DCX 8 miner, the garage door. You get the point. Everything's coming in pretty much through the garage door, and I come in through the man door. To bring it back to organization, I really just want to take some time and sit here and methodically think, what do I want to add? How do I want to manage these wires? How could I rerun things to be nice and tidy? How could I look at getting some space back and all that stuff? There's a lot of like small room for just cleaning stuff up, or just, I don't know, just random things. I mean, I obviously did that really fast, and that looks very mediocre at best. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, who cares? This is industrial. It's not a showpiece. I take pride in my work, so I want things to look good and be nice. But there's also diminishing returns. I'm very busy all the time, so I'm not just sitting here bored trying to come up with things to do. Maybe whenever I get to that stage one day, possibly if ever, I'll come back and do these things. But as it stands, I just want to clean things up a little bit more, consolidate, get more things off the ground if possible, or just simply out of here. And I think it would be pretty sweet if I painted in here. You can see that's one hand brushed coat of kills right there. It's pretty hard to paint onto this radiant barrier. So not a very paintable surface. So in the overspray, if I was to spray at this point, it would be abysmal. If I could go back in time, I probably would have just painted this up front. But the amount of immersion fluid spilled during installs would have just terribly discolored the back wall of all of these areas. Maybe that wouldn't really matter, who cares? Again, maybe it just doesn't even matter at all. I guess those are my random shower thoughts. If I ever find some spare time, I may try to add some trim or something by this exhaust fan, but that's another thing I need to learn how to do, and it's not my forte or in my wheelhouse. Honestly, I'm kind of inclined to just try to carefully caulk it, and that will seal it up and make it look a little bit better. It's slightly protected with that small overhang. I could also look at some kind of water reclamation system because we don't have running water out here. And if I had that, I could utilize a spray system that would provide additional cooling capabilities on the back of the FogHashing C6 dry cooler, as well as the back of the FogHashing B6D dry cooler. I really like the VFDs on the FogHashing dry coolers. They ramp up and down as needed, so they don't need to work too hard right now. And you probably can't appreciate just how quiet these are right now. Whereas, and don't get me wrong, if it's really hot, another 10-20 degrees, they're full bore and they're not quiet because they need to be running harder. Whereas like the DCX dry cooler, it just always runs full bore. You probably hear that, maybe see that. And that's fine when it's super hot, but it ends up being a waste of electricity in the cool months where it just doesn't need to be working that hard. And the B6D, I believe, is supposed to do what the FogHashing does, but it ends up needing to work a lot harder to basically perform the same function. Pretty much same situation with the C2 over here. This thing is spinning fast and working hard. The BixBit dry coolers, they make this like terrible mechanical sound. I hate the way it sounds. But they really don't blow much air because they only spin as much as they need to. The bigger unit doesn't make half as much noise as the smaller unit does, ironically. And I don't know if you can appreciate just how dang big this thing is on camera. But like, it's huge. Like, I'm inside of it. But yeah, these things are big. If you never watched that video, you should watch that video. It was so interesting, so challenging, and at times when I was very overburdened in that period, pretty frustrating. But I will say, as I get closer to being a year out from that install, I really enjoy these units and I'm happy to have them deployed on the mining farm. So, hey, I'm Drew Vosk. You're on the VoskCoin YouTube channel. This is the VoskCoin Immersion Mining Shed, originally the Mining Shed 2.0, but it's since become the Immersion Mining Shed because that's all that we do in there. Got over 30 mining rigs running in that shed. If I had more electricity, I could be doing even more things. I am spinning the electricity meter so fast that I am breaking them. And they've even abducted my last meter to send to their research team. So that's that's where I'm at on this one. Hope you enjoyed the content. I know this is pretty long form style. I hope that the details are interesting and that I wasn't too long-winded. If you like this, please subscribe. If you're somehow still watching this video at this point and didn't like it, well, you've been here long enough. You might as well subscribe anyway. This month, I also just want to announce it yet again. Super happy. Tails has celebrated her 9th birthday. That beautiful pup, she almost didn't make it to year 2. So now that we are going on year 10, I couldn't be more just overjoyed and thankful that I get to have that pup in my life, and I appreciate all you freaking maniacs that tune in and watch me do all this crazy crypto stuff. I'm just trying to be thankful and take a moment to appreciate the things in my life, and I hope that you've got some good things going on in your life as well. And this is just your random reminder for some dude yelling at a camera on YouTube. That take a moment, take a deep breath, and appreciate what you're doing, appreciate what you've done, appreciate maybe where you came from and where you're at now, even if it's not quite where you want to be. As long as you're taking steps in the right direction, you're taking the right steps. We'll see you on the next one. Hey, you want to buy a mining rig? Do you want a pretty good price on it and pretty fast shipping? Then you may be looking for ASIC Marketplace. Click our link in the video description below to not only support our channel, but support yourself with the coupon code we've got right next to it.